Hello and welcome to another episode of the Better Business Place. It is Tuesday, 11 o'clock, and that means it's time for our interview. I'm going to bring on our guest very shortly, but I wanted to find out from you, do you struggle with understanding when you need help? Do you just struggle with sometimes just getting all the work done? Because as your business grows, the real trick is actually to know when to take on team members. And my very special guest today is Tommy Digital, and I'll bring him on now. Tommy. There he is.
What's up?
What's up, Tommy?
I'm back. Hey.
It seems like you're here all the time, doesn't it?
I know. Hey, it's an honor and a pleasure all the time being here, man. Thank you for having me, Glenn.
Listen, for those people that don't know, I met Tommy probably 6 or 7 years ago. He stalked me through, I think it was Skype at the time, because he liked my name, That Referral Guy. And we connected, and we've had a great relationship ever since. We are looking to go into business in the future. We've talked about it a couple of times. So it's really great to have you here on the live. We've got a couple of people with us today. G'day, Mick. A couple of other users already logged on. Thank you very much for being a part of it. But let me just give you a bit of a brief on Tommy Digital, or Tommy Secuya, aka Tommy Digital. He runs a very large VA team in the Philippines, about 55 strong. They do a range of different products and services, and we're going to talk about those today. As your business grows, when do you know the right time to bring someone on board? He's just a master at it. Anyway, Tommy, why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay, sure. So we've been existing for about 7 years, supporting people from all around the globe, but mostly in Australia, because Australians are cool.
And you've been here a couple of times, haven't you?
Been to Sydney, haven't been to Melbourne yet, and that's kind of on the bucket list. So the business, we are a company that kind of works with people for anything digital, right? If it can be done on a computer, if it can be done through the internet, we do it, right? But focus mostly on online presence and digital marketing. So that could mean a whole slew of things and a bunch of different approaches. So that's what we're going to talk about today, I believe, because hey, so are Kiwis, somebody says. Yes, yeah. I agree. Met a couple, they're also awesome, man.
Listen, today's show is going to be a little bit different. Normally, I would interview someone. I'd ask them about their business, the things that are holding them back, the things that they're doing that are dynamic. But we've had a lot of people over the last couple of weeks say, Glenn, how do you get so much achieved, right? Because I know that it's just sometimes just you and your business. Now, when I was running a large franchise, it was easy because I had lots of people. But what I really wanted to do today is to talk about, the different types of services that you can get from VA. When should you get a VA, or when do you just need a little task done? And Tommy, you run several umbrellas to your business, so I wanted to talk about that, and so you can help people understand, and even the biggest probably question is, should I really use someone overseas? What are the questions that how would you respond to someone like that? They're from Australia and they're going to say, hey, I'm worried about using a VA overseas.
I would respond to that by asking where is the worry coming from, and what is driving it, because I believe that when you work with people from overseas, it's a lot similar with working with somebody locally or inshore. It's the same. It's the same, right? But I think what would kind of calm you down, or kind of ease that concern or worry, is proof, social proof, credibility, reputation. Because it's when you really zoom out and do a macro view, we're all just human beings living in different neighborhoods across the world, right? So it's a matter of what the relationship is like, and it's a matter of the trust that you have to give and earn. Now, I had a conversation. I had to turn somebody down just, I guess, a week ago or 2 weeks ago because, well, she was ready to start. She was ready to pay and stuff, but um, it felt like from the gate she was already asking too many questions about, like, you might disappear, you might, and things like that. And I said to her, look, I don't think we should start because we want to earn your trust, but for us to do that, you're going to have to give it first. And if you're not ready to give it, how will we ever earn it? You know what I mean? So if you are investing and if you are spending a fair amount of money, and I'm not talking about millions, I'm talking about $500, $1,000, right? Which is still a good chunk of change for you month to month, depending on your income. And if you're spending that and you're worried about that, think about what we're about to spend as well. It's a mutual kind of investment in a relationship. When we take a project on or when we take a client on, there's a good amount of work that has to happen to get that going. To even get on a call with a person is a lot of work. To acquire a customer is a lot of work. So if our goal was really to just fleece you off your cash and disappear, I think there are easier ways to do that rather than offering up work. I'll just email you like I'm a prince from Nigeria, and I'm just gonna say, "Hey, you won $2 million. Just send us your bank account."
Believe it or not, they still pull $80 million worth of scams like that out of Queensland alone. That's a statistic I saw. Hey, listen, a lot of people are typing in questions into the chat bar. Thank you so much for doing that. I want you to know that at the very, very end, we will make sure that we get to every single question. So I just asked you, what are the concerns with people using a VA, especially being overseas? But even if you just speak about a business growing to the point where they need to outsource, most of the people that I know are small business owners. They're a 1-2 man operation, and they are growing, and they reach a certain point where they just feel overwhelmed. I've got a few clients right now, and they've grown and they've outgrown their either skill set themselves, or they've grown to the point where they just can't handle all the tasks and the inquiries and the graphics and the getting the work out, and they just feel completely overwhelmed. So they've obviously reached a point where they need to consider getting help. Okay.
Yes.
And when they do that, they've either got a couple of choices. They can either become the technician themselves and be fantastic at doing that, or they can focus on what their genius and what they do, and then outsourcing that to somebody else. Now, whether or not they employ someone, whether or not they just pass out that particular task, there's lots of different services out there, isn't there?
There are. And I'd express that in 3 different categories. But I think first of all, the concept of outsourcing has been around longer than we would actually think. For example, when you hire an accountant, you're outsourcing. When you are hiring a lawyer, you're outsourcing. So to demystify the word outsourcing, right? It's been around. You outsource your healthcare, right? Correct. Now, you also mentioned that you can DIY. Now, I'm not against DIY, do it yourself. I'm only against it when it takes you away from what you said, your genius. Because it eats away, because it's also fun to do, Glenn. Like, I saw you assemble this whole stream today. It's fun to do, it's fun to learn, but it takes you away from your core and what brings in the money. And if it's doing that, it may potentially lead you to burnout, figuring out how to tinker everything and make everything work. So
correct. I mean, I'll just chime in there, Tom. There were 2 phone calls that I could have taken that were clients calling and I know some of the notifications, the bings that people are getting, their clients either trying to reach you or trying to reach me. And that's where my genius is. It's actually not doing the setting up of this. I would actually much rather have someone already have done the graphics and already have the show up and running and just say, Glenn, just stroll in and it's all set up for you. Just press here and go. All right.
Right.
It was fun for the first couple of shows, but I'm over it now. And I just really want to be able to walk in and do it. All right. That's the real truth of the matter. And it just comes down to sometimes how do you get the information out of your head and come up with a system for getting it out of your head onto somebody else, and then financial. They're the two decisions you've got. Okay.
And it doesn't look like it's a lot too, man. I mean, when you get started on something like StreamYard or Zoom, or you're thinking, oh, it should just be, click this, click that, put my email on. But really, they kind of give birth to other like little tiny things. Where do I get the graphic from here? How do I build the invite? How do I tell everybody in the group, et cetera, et cetera? And it's not like that's the only thing that you're thinking about. Again, you're thinking about your clients. You're thinking about calls. You're thinking about your material, your content. You're thinking about your core business. So generally, like you could do this in 3 ways, right? In 3 ways. If you're feeling ready to kind of source it out. First of all, I know I'm not insensitive to the fact that it's a big transition, big transition. I know that because I went through the same thing, right? When I had to kind of move the work to somebody else that I personally did, I had so many concerns and I had so many worries. And it's not as easy as just saying, here, take it and do it. So there's 3 ways, right? There's 3 ways. There's probably more. But the 3 ways that I've seen kind of revolve over and over around this world in the 7 years that we've been doing this. One, you can, if it's a small thing that you just need to get, it's ad hoc. Like it's not a recurring need. It's like just now I need this little tiny thing done. I need to get it back. I need to put it here, and I'll do it myself. There is kind of a marketplace approach to it, kind of just you buy per task. And one of the examples, it was what we were talking about. It's called Codex. You just go in there.
Let me bring that up then. I'm going to add that to the stream, and I'll go on the Codex website. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about this particular website.
Okay, this website, for example, is kind of a marketplace for digital tasks or projects, small enough for you to just kind of spend $50, $30, $70 for different things. And you kind of just click through, get it done, buy the task, it gets done, and it's sent back to you as you need it.
Okay, so if I just click on shop there and then just go through, I'll just get rid of this. And just go through the products, is it?
Yeah, those are some quick examples, and they're currently updating that with more stuff that you can do, because what we're doing is we're looking into what's common and what's needed by people most of the time, and we don't want to load it with too many options that it gets kind of really confusing and you don't know what you want. Because most of the time, when it's like small like this, either you're really, really clear with what you want and you need to get done, like you, Glenn, like you're like, I need a landing page, boop. I need a graphic for here, boop. But there are some people who are transitioning into the digital space who are kind of, where do I start? Where do I go? Now, if you're still in that premise, you're still in that area, I don't think this is the best way to go for you, because you need somebody to think with you and to think for you. But it is a good enough toe dipping exercise. Just get a business card. Get a logo done.
There's something that I did last week. Like an ebook. It was actually what did I need? I had a client who needs like a blueprint, and so I contacted one of the team that just said, Glenn, just use the ebook one. I just read that, and it didn't sound like the right sort of brief. But it ended up being right. So it was about $40, $50 and I ended up with the product that I needed. So that's because I know this particular website. I am used to buying it, right? So, but it's a great way to buy one-off sort of jobs. You're right.
Yeah.
What's the next version?
Well, you bring it to the second model, which is to get a VA. Now,
Okay. So
of course,
that's more of this.
Yeah, that's Get Me Ava.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute little play on words. Get me a VA, but like Get Me Ava. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this one you shouldn't get. Again, you shouldn't get this kind of service when you're absolutely unclear with what you want, what you need on a recurring basis, because you shouldn't do this if it's not recurring, if it's not continuous. Why? First of all, the investment is not just money, but also time. It's like you're setting up an employee halfway across the world or across the world. An employee that has morale, motivation, training required, management required. So unless your business is in a position, you're personally in a position to manage somebody, run somebody, make sure that this person is productive and motivated at the same time, don't do this. Because this person who's looking for a job is looking to build a career. And if you only need something done for a month, 2 months, that wouldn't be, they'd take it, people would do it, but it wouldn't be kind of fair from a human perspective, because they're trying to find a source of living, right? And with companies that Get Me Ava, what we do there is we hold your hand for the first 3 months, and then after that, the relationship is direct. We're only there for 3 months because we want to make sure that the VA is trained up to a standard and you're looked after as well. And after that, you guys you're on your own, unless you want to keep us on around for support. But this is something that also you get when most of what you need is customer support or admin, and not one-off projects or anything that has a recurrence in the business, because it wouldn't make sense, right? So this is kind of a big decision because it's a person. It's a person that you are getting and you are onboarding, right? But it's pretty cool to have someone on the other line and you just go, hey, can you do this, da 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 da, and then response. You get like, okay, we'll get it done. Again, it's very different. Now, that brings me to the third, right? If you're looking to get something infrastructural or integral to the business or mission critical or strategic, but it's kind of one-off, or maybe you kind of need an ongoing kind of support, get an agency that thinks with you and thinks for you. So that's what Carve primarily is, right? And so you can imagine that it's not as cheap as Codex. It's not also as cheap as Ava, but you don't really have to train anybody, manage anybody, think about anybody. It's basically you're in a relationship with a company that's ensuring work continuity all throughout, without you having to think much about anything except basically transferring the goal and the vision of what you want to do and what you want to get done. So those are the three approaches, because working with an agency, you have this consultative kind of thing, right? Working with a VA, you have kind of like your own person. And getting into a marketplace like Codex allows you to just get stuff done, little things, on a need basis.
Now, I've used, I think, all three of the services, and at the same time, I also had a VA in Australia, Ginger, who most people would know. I had them for different reasons. When you work with someone like Carve, I enjoyed the aspect of having someone that I could contact, and then they manage the projects for me. So they went, and it was Queen, and then she just went and looked after the graphics team or the landing page team. She managed all that infrastructure. So it was just my relationship with a company, and I had someone personal, my relationship with Carve, but I had a dedicated person there. That was brilliant. Because from a business perspective, it was great. I always had someone accountable, and I set tasks. They needed to respond to those tasks, and we always had a chit chat, like once a week or sometimes once a day about the projects coming up. And then I was able to just go off and do what I did really well. And for me, it felt that I felt like I was a real business. I'd grown up then, but it meant that the business ran a lot smoother then in terms of applications and the back end of running Infusionsoft and the way that we used to deliver on our promise. But then I also had a local VA, Ginger, who would do all the client relations sort of things, the phone calls and the stock delivery and the members packs and all that sort of thing. So they work hand in hand. You remember back to those days?
Yeah, for sure. And it's all of them, all three approaches have their own challenges. All three of them have their own good and their own kind of not so good. But if you are patient enough and you are committed enough and invested enough in the process, it will yield you kind of a lot. It will yield you a lot because sourcing it out from Asia and other countries that is more affordable than your current locality, right? And this kind of addresses some of the comments as well, but allows you, because you're not in the position to actually hire locally if you're starting out, for example.
Well, let's bring in some of the questions because I'm going to throw up some. I'm going to get out of removing this from the stream. Just have it asked. Let's just answer some of the questions because they will go to people's mindset. All right. So our first question comes up and says, I think the concerns lay around one, concerns not employing Australians, and two, quality of the work, and three, the performance management. Right. So it's just because we're in a group, I can't see the name. Yeah. If I popped into Facebook, I'd be able to see who this is. But let's just talk about those concerns about not employing Australians. So that one. Okay, well, see what you handle it first, and then I'll sort of say give my 2 cents worth on this one.
Well, the thing is, the short answer for me there, Glenn, is because I've had this conversation multiple times, is that you outsource from outside Australia so you can eventually hire Australians. You know what I mean? Because employing Australians, if you're not in the position to economically, financially do that, that stops you from actually launching or starting your business out, thereby pulling you back from getting to a point where you can hire Australians. Because the truth is, you could get a website done in Australia for $8,000. Mm-hmm. Well, you could get a website done out of Australia as low as if you go to different places, you can spend like $100 for a website. I wouldn't, especially if it's like really important. I wouldn't, but you can. So then if you get to a point of growth and you're like, you can afford $8,000, then you can hire somebody Australian. Now, that brings me to the second part, but I'd let you get in on it first.
Okay, so I totally agree with that answer. And it is your mindset sort of, first of all, going, you can't do it all yourself. All right. And if you've only got a certain amount of money coming into the business and you can't do it, and you've just got this small pool of money, this is just one option. All right. And it just comes down to being an option, going, who can I get this to do this job for, let's say $100. Now, if you can get an Australian to do it, that might be great because you might feel more comfortable about that. But if you can't, this is a great alternative. And for me personally, I found this an exceptional way to get the job done. Okay. And that's what it is. And you've still got to remain profitable. All right. So you can either stay back late and do a lot of hours, right? And that's good, but you're not really valuing your time because you turn up really tired to work and therefore you don't convert. So that's the first thing. The second one, quality of work. Okay. You want to start with that one?
Yeah. To add to point number one too, man, like, because if let's say the price of a website in Australia is 8,000 and all you could afford is $1,000, you'd be forcing somebody to devaluate their work at the level that you can pay. Versus if let's say you outsource that and they're only really asking for 1,000 and what you got is 1,000, then they're giving you high quality work for what you can actually afford. So it really kind of meets. Now it brings me to point number two. Quality of work, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll answer this as objectively as I can. Without a shadow of a doubt, everywhere in the world there are mad skills to be found, right? You just need to know the right place to look for them and find them and get them on your team. But at the same time, there is a gap called a cultural gap. It's a cultural gap. So we don't understand specifically how, let's say you own a coffee shop, one of your clients owns a coffee shop, Glenn, right? And you own a coffee shop. We don't understand the context of the vicinity around you, the neighborhood, how the economy moves there, what kind of traffic happens. So the challenge there is for you to transfer that side of things onto whoever it is that you're outsourcing to. But as far as quality, you have to believe me when I say it's like work from India, work from the Philippines, work from Venezuela, work from Ecuador. If you go on Behance, it's a design portfolio website. You look through those designs there and you'd be like, whoa, these guys must be the guys doing the stuff for Nike, but they're not. They're not. So quality of work side of things, dude, like if you spend enough time looking and connecting, you will find the right source. And there is mad skills everywhere.
Correct. To that, I'd agree too. You still have to go through the same process of seeing the previous work, asking the right sort of questions with anybody that you're going to use. But the quality of work, there are lots of skillful people right around the world. You've just got to be able to calculate that in terms of the currency of what they consider to be $100 here is different from $100 somewhere else. Right? I'm going to start to speak to the third one, performance management. Yeah, that comes down to expectations. And if the expectations are set up front, like when will I get the work done and how will that process be managed? Even if I look at a product like the Go Codex, you can see that what comes back is the time frames. Hey, listen, when you give us the brief, the work will come back in 5 to 7 days, and then you will have 2 to 3 options. Right? I found that the more that I get better with my descriptions, the less the
it's shorter the time.
Yeah, I shorten the time, but also the versions that have to come back to me. All right. So performance management actually starts with yourself and the brief that you give to someone. And when you first start out using a VA, you think you know what you're asking for, but if you recorded that and listened to yourself talk, you'd be like, how is anybody supposed to understand what I meant by that particular instruction? Because you were relating it to everything that you've got and you've synced it all up in your head. But if you just took it on the face fact values of what you just asked someone to do, the performance management really needs to start with you. But Dean, they were both great questions. If you want to speak to that one, Tom, great. If not, I want to dive down to Sarah's question, and that's the one underneath, one of my biggest concerns. I'll bring that up next.
Oh, sure. I'd like to speak to that by saying the expectation of when you outsource to somebody, it's a collaborative effort, right? It's not a one-way thing coming from you. You tell me which one, I'll do everything. It's not like that. So there's a certain degree of you meeting in the middle and agreeing on the expectation and the cadence of how you're going to do stuff together. And kind of, you have to manage yourself as well. To a degree, an agency manages a client. Like, Glenn, where's this? Where's that? Because we need it, because he said that we wanted to get there. So that's kind of something that takes place. And so that's why I said you have to be ready for this. Look, the question's covering our faces. Look,
This is a big one. This one comes from a leadership coach, a friend of mine, Sarah Suzak. Right. One of my biggest concerns in outsourcing overseas, instead of using local businesses, as far as investing in the local economy, so you've found that by helping businesses who have utilized your company, they have grown their business and increased the capacity to invest back in home in other areas of their business. It's a win-win situation. Okay, I'm just going to remove this just so that it's a great question so that you can see this, because otherwise I feel like I'm just going to, oh, can you see me?
Yeah. Hey, hi.
You're right. Yeah. There we go. That's better. So, how would you answer that one, Tom?
I have personally witnessed this, right? We have a client who started out with one VA, and there's only two of them there. Him and an employee, a high-ranking employee for him. They're a financial advisory group in, where are they? Sydney. And so now I think I think there's 8 of them, or 8 to 12 people in their team over there locally, and there's like 6 of them here now. So sourcing out the process that of course what they were outsourcing was initially a small process, and then it increased. So they needed more and more people here, but it also allowed them to basically refine their service and kind of cater to more clients, take more clients on board, take more money on board, and be able to hire more people there locally, because they needed to expand locally as well. And so it bought them time, and it bought them a streamlined process. So now as they continue to grow over there locally, they're also continuously growing over here as they source out that section of the business. So yes, I have witnessed this multiple times. I'll let you answer, and then maybe I can share again after.
Look, I'm going to go way back and sort of say that pre-internet, everybody used to just buy from someone on the end of the phone call, usually that was in their own town. And then the internet came, and then it became, well, yeah, I could deal with someone in the city, or in Newcastle, or in Melbourne. Okay, and I'm speaking from Sydney. So they still felt that was buying from home. Now you're just, within their own country. Now you're just buying from global. Yeah, I get that. Most people I've experienced, they want to employ local people, but sometimes the talent is not there. Depends on your business. When I was growing mine, there are certain aspects of the business I couldn't get someone locally to do that particular task. All right. And then that almost forced me to go looking elsewhere. But I actually wanted, and I felt good about employing local people, right? Because the economy, the money stays in the country, and those people spend money with me. It's something that I got brought up to. When I was a young boy, I remember actually traveling about 30 kilometers to get our fruit. And when I asked my mum, how come we've got to travel all the way out here? We've passed like 10 different fruit shops. And she said, because they spend money with us. And I get it. Your retention of your client was really good. He spent money with us, so we spent money with him. It wasn't swapped in that way, but it felt good to be dealing business, and it felt like there was more of a connection and a bond. But I've also experienced that with your company, Tom, and I've actually never spent 1 foot in the door of Carve.
Which is, by the way, something that you should definitely do within not within the year, but but sometimes
soon.
Just to add to Glenn, it's kind of a limiting thing, right? You like in Australia, really great coffee.
Fantastic coffee. Everywhere else is just terrible.
You say this with pride too, like, oh, we've got the best coffees. Starbucks are for foreigners. And so I agree, great coffee, because they're single origin, from Ecuador, Guatemala, Peru, Africa. So if we're buying local still, you know what I mean? You're buying the coffee locally, but it's sourced from everywhere. It's almost like, should I just buy local cookies? I can't buy Chips Ahoy from the grocery. I can't buy cookies from the grocery. It's like buying Voss water. It's not from Australia, but you're buying it. You know what I mean? So it's the same. You're not taking away. You're still putting into the world economy that puts into Australian economy. It's the same. It's the same concept. We just have to kind of zoom out a little bit. By the way, Glenn, if this is beneficial, you and I, not on these live sessions, because it's starting to feel almost like a training session, right? Almost like a training session.
Yeah.
So maybe you and I could do something like that. If you're watching this and you're interested and you feel like we could give you guidance, we could give you tips, pointers for a program. Just say, what should they say? Course, program? Should they say program or course? You and I will give.
Like on the in this particular episode.
No, the comments. They should just, if they're watching this, they should put, like, I just want to do a poll. If they believe that this is helpful and we should do something, and we build like a series of videos that they can go through or whatever, they should just say, "Hey,
right, okay, yeah, I get it, yeah." Well, I know they're going to say that about. I know they're going to say that about me, Tom.
What?
I know they're going to say that about me. Yes, it'd be very helpful if you did that, Glenn. So the question is to everybody, do you think, has this been of value to you, and can we do something further for you by the putting together a series of videos that would help you navigate this particular area of landscape of how do I learn how to get a job done? How do I learn how to choose a VA? What are the things that I would need to look out for? Then Tom and I will go and do that, and we'll put that in the links down below. Actually, I'm hearing Sarah says yes, that'd be great, and perfect answer from one before. She's also put in something else that I'll just show you here, Tom. It says perfect answer. Also, do you help businesses with gap analysis for their services you provide? Sometimes we don't know what we know, or what is available that could enhance our business. You know, that's a great question. It's one of the things that I've started to include within my business. When I go and see a client, I will actually say, "Hey, listen, we will do that for you, all right?" And then I use a service like Codex or Carve or Ava and make them look like they're coming from me and I'm the go-to person. I very rarely tack a little bit on, but I just know that it makes the customer feel a lot better that they're dealing with me, and in the back end, I'm just getting it done. That's exactly what I'm doing for my next client, which is a gym. I'll be working on a chat bot and then some graphics getting done, which I'm getting one of your team members to do. Yeah.
So, okay, with Carve, since it's an agency, our approach really is, and Sarah, that's a great question, by the way. It's almost white glove, right? It's almost like concierge. And then we figure out where you should go. Like maybe you should just go Codex because it's too small, like tiny stuff. Or it could be, let's get you a VA. Or it could be like bespoke, let's do this plan and we'll build it for you, work it out with you. So anywhere we go, whatever direction we go after, we always start with kind of an audit on your online presence and your marketing and what efforts you're putting into your channels. And from that, actually glean what needs to be done and what would the best approach be. So we have an audit that is, gap analysis. What we're developing now, and this would be interesting even for you, Glenn, is an actual scoring system that would be able to tell you that, Glenn, your internet game is at 75%. And here are the opportunities, right? We're figuring that out right now because we're kind of aggregating different KPIs, different data from different platforms. So we need to reconcile that and build one final score. So yes, we do analyze that, and we are able to tell you what we think should be done, and where we think you should go for it, and how. And depending on your budget and your bandwidth, your time, effort, and energy that you can put in, that's where we will kind of figure out the timetable, which is kind of what we're doing with one of your friends, Glenn. Very strategic.
I am getting a couple of people just putting in yes to do a course, because it does sound like it's hard for them to navigate when to do that. Listen, I've got another one here from Paul that I'll just shove up. Paul, we had as a guest a couple of weeks ago. For anybody who remembers, well, there'll be lots of people that would remember Paul. Paul, thanks very much for being on the show today. Paul works in the area of leadership and helps people in areas that I don't, right? And yet both of us could be seen as coaches. Okay. And so speaking to one of those questions earlier, how does someone know which coach to go with? Which person's expertise, all right? Because I'm an expert in the area of lead gen and referral programs. Paul's is very, very different. And then we've got Sarah on the call here, and her skills are very, very different as well. But from a business perspective, how do they know on who to choose? Yeah, it's got to be hard. So yeah, Tommy and I can put something together on how to navigate that particular landscape. So Paul asks, clients struggle with knowing what's involved easily. That would be very useful. Okay, well, he's saying the same sort of thing, I guess. Thanks very much, Paul.
Yeah. I'd like to answer a little bit with Paul. Well, I don't know if this is a question or more like just a comment. I just like to respond to it. I fully agree. In our experience, clients kind of know what they want for their business. That's something that is more sure and more certain when they come to us. But as far as to the point of what do I get my VA done, or what will the agency do for me, and what are the projects that I need to prioritize really to get there, that is where they need help, kind of breaking it down and kind of clustering it, or breaking it down and planning it and into something that makes sense towards the goal. At the same time, clients also do not know if the word involved means the amount of, or the intensity of effort and emotion and intellect and time that you have to put in, especially at the beginning. Look, it's always like there isn't an easy start to this. There's always like a quarter of massive adjustment, because the communication it's not the same as a person just right next to you, right? That's the difference. Yeah. And so it's quite involved in that aspect. You have to put in a certain degree of investment for you to actually spend less money in the process, allowing you to save up more money to kind of put it into wherever it has to go, right?
I totally agree. I think the alternative is that you do nothing, and that in 12 months' time, your business is it's probably worse. You are so stressed out and not doing anything. So whenever you decide to grow the team, right, that process there is always going to take a little bit of effort, right? But the more that you put into that effort, the less it is further down the track. And it's a bit like I've seen it on many pitches when you're trying to push a rock uphill, right? Or even when you're trying to push a broken down car, right?
Is that
to start off with the energy, it's a lot, because it's just standing there, right? And you put a lot of energy into moving the car. But once you get it moving, then it's just a little bit just to maintain that momentum. And my experience has been with VA locally, overseas, or anybody, it's been that, it was a bit of a process at the beginning to getting the communication correctly, understanding what I needed to provide for them, and then what was going to come back. But that's the same with any process. Anything that's new is going to seem a little bit clunky. And then as soon as you get it up and running in full swing, it's like, this is fantastic. How did I ever run my business without them?
You have to put it in. You get what you put out. You get out what you put in, right? Because like any other thing, and I've seen this happen several times too. It's just the marketing of all of these things, of course, is like 2 steps, 1 click, very easy. No sweat, no stress. Of course, that's how we're all supposed to market ourselves. But in truth, when you get into it, the objective answer is, I'm not even going to pretend and give you something like, oh, just get on and it's easy. No, there's a certain amount of investment.
Well, how would you market that? Listen, it's going to be a long process. It's going to need a lot of effort from you to start off with, and we're going to get things wrong, and you're going to need to give us feedback. I mean, come on. The marketing pitch for that is not going to be very good. Everybody pitches, which is why people have a little bit of skepticism before they come on board. Listen, we have gone way over. I've always loved speaking to you. It's very, very easy. We have had a couple of people saying, how would I book in for this? So what Tommy and I are going to do is we'll get off air and we'll map out how we would do this. It'll probably come in a video format, but all of the information that we have and how you book for it will go into this particular chat under this particular live show. So if you're on, people are watching us from YouTube, or you might be watching us in the Better Business Place Facebook group, I'll make sure that the instructions are pinned to the top of that area. Okay, so look out for that. Tommy, thank you so much for being part of the show yet again. You always do provide value. And for everybody who is watching this, the reason why I asked Tommy to do this is because he comes from an objective point of view. Yes, there was some parts to his business we showcased, but the purpose of this show today was to know, when do you use a VA? When do you decide where should I choose that VA from? And I couldn't think of anyone better to actually help me with this particular show besides Tommy. The fact that he owns a VA, a business, is immaterial. I've got to tell you, I would have picked him because he's the best at giving real advice, and that's what you're all commenting. Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Tommy. Very much worthwhile. Appreciate that, Sarah. And Paul, thanks very much for your tips, sort of saying good work, lads. Do you have anything else in closing, Tommy?
Well, it's been an honor, Glenn, and love being on these sessions. And now, hopefully, we can extend our help further, which you and I have to figure that out. Love the interaction, guys, and I appreciate it. I think for anything like this, the intensity that you bring to it is the intensity that you will take from it. And so,
correct.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, Glenn. And
hey, Tommy, can you do one favor, just the end? What is the channel that you're doing? You're also doing a YouTube channel, and I found that very helpful for getting to meet other people, because it's where I've watched several hours over the weekend from a graphic designer that you've had on the show. What's that all about? Just quickly tell me.
Oh, sure. The YouTube channel, thank you for allowing me to do a shameless plug, by the way. The YouTube channel is 10 Minutes on Brand Awareness. So it addresses anything and everything under the umbrella of brand awareness. So we've recently had a guest called Chris Doe, who's worked on movies, worked on big brands like Xbox and things like that. And now he's more into educating creative agencies on how to do business, really, how to put value forward, et cetera, et cetera. And he's given us the time to do that there. And we're going to do it again in 3 weeks, or in about 2.5 weeks. And that's going to happen. So please check that out, subscribe, add me on Facebook or what have you, so that we can continue the conversation.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right. This is Glenn Kirkwood, aka That Referral Guy, signing off with a reminder to make, build, and share connections. I'll see you next time.
See ya.